Hello.
Hi.
Hello. You got your computer all sorted out?
Yeah, I decided to stop moving. I will not be moving it over by my whiteboard ever again. I had to buy a new one, tuned to $1,000. So it was a disaster. It was an economic disaster. However, we just have a different view. So I just got your email. I've already printed out. So were there a lot of changes in the poems?
It was just
Is it just
Lucy
Lucy's?
Terrell. She had
Yeah.
three lines I had somehow missed. That's really the only thing.
Okay. Let me see. Yeah, without Patricia and Sarah, we are actually exactly at 90 minutes. So I just think we won't do them. Or Julie, right? We
Yeah,
had
there's
we
actually
have
three.
eight.
There's actually three now that are not.
Oh,
So I think if I share my screen, we'll go in the order of the way I have them, and you can just read your notes.
so it's Julie, Patricia, and Sarah.
Correct.
But there were 21 on the original list, so we're at 18.
Right.
Times 5 is 90.
Oh.
So I did math, which is
Hello, everybody.
very much unlike me.
This is Jessica. For those, I see Annette, you weren't on the first one. This is Jessica.
Hi.
Well, I watched the video afterwards because I couldn't attend the last one. And so I'm just here to listen tonight and see what everybody wrote.
Sounds good. We'll give people a few more minutes.
Yeah, I have everything printed out, so I'm writing Lucy's last 3 lines on the part that I printed out.
Okay. You taught a class today. What was the class?
I'm teaching a reaching and finding your audience class for my MFA program, and then a novel class. So it's asynchronous learning, but I had a lot to do.
Hi, Angela.
Hello.
Okay. I hope some people feel like reading. Some of these are very nice and short, and I think there's time to read them aloud. Some
Want to, some are fine not. So we'll just play it by ear.
Play it by ear.
I'll read mine.
Good. Oh, Jan, you're first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yours is nice and tight, small, and we can dig in.
Are you going to share the screen poems, or do we need to have our copy up?
No, I think I'm gonna share them. I got them
Okay.
ready to go. Like I just gotta find them on my computer. Here we go.
Ah,
Can you
fantastic.
can you see them okay?
Yeah, I think your navigation is on. Is that, I think that's yours. I keep thinking it's mine and I want to turn it off.
My navigation is on. What is that?
Yeah, well, you know how when you open a Word document and you were searching for oak, and then it just showed the navigation bar.
So is this better?
No, that's fantastic.
Okay.
That for us shows 2 columns wide.
I know. I'm just seeing if I can get rid of that.
If you,
Better?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, look at that. It goes to the right. That's weird.
can you try expanding your screen up and down? I mean, the document up and down, or the screen, or what shows, so that we could see more of a poem at once, so you don't have to scroll as much?
Better?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, perfect.
Learning all the time.
It's a never ending thing.
Yeah.
If we don't have time
Can you
during the
see-
type,
Can you see okay?
if our time is tightly compressed, I wanted to thank Jessica for providing those extra documents. I didn't have a chance to look at them carefully, but they look really helpful.
They're some of my favorites. I especially like the line break one because it's just so useful. Why people break a line, you know. Also, I'm a big fan of compression. I think that's my second favorite thing about editing is compressing. So there's a little blurb in that about.
Yes.
So I always feel it's like a vacuum cleaner. How can I vacuum my poem? What can I pick up? What doesn't need to be there?
That's a good analogy, actually.
Well, I am a poet.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Theoretically, I should be able to do that now and again in the real world.
All right, it's 7:01. Since we're short on time, I'm going to get us launched. We have a few new people, so I am going to do the official introduction of you. So welcome, everybody. I'm Tori Grant Wellhouse, and I'm with Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets. You are at a Writing Grief and Loss workshop, part 2. And we are with Jessica Barksdale. Jessica's 15th novel, The Play's the Thing, and second poetry collection, Grim Honey, were both published spring 2021. Her novels include Her Daughter's Eyes, The Matter of Grace, and When You Believe. A Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, her short stories, poems, and essays have appeared or are forthcoming in the North American Review, Salt Hill Journal, Tahoma Review, and So to Speak. Recently retired, she taught at Diablo Valley College for 32 years and continues to teach novel writing online for UCLA Extension and in the online MFA program for Southern New Hampshire University. And you can find out more about her on her website. She lives in the Pacific Northwest with her husband. So tonight we are going to review the submitted poems, and the rules of engagement are: the poet can read or not read their poem, up to them. And 5 minutes a poem. We're gonna let Jessica verbally give feedback and everybody else chat the feedback. And I will share both the video and the chat after the session. So you will have the running record of all of the chat and comments. Is everybody clear about that? Do you have any questions about how that works? It worked pretty slick last time and we were able to get through quite a few poems.
It might be helpful to mute unless you're reading.
Good. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lucy. That's good. Okay, so Jan, you are first. Do you want to read your poem?
Yes.
Okay.
Grief. It is terrible to survive, sometimes to sell his fishing boat, repeatedly to answer the question, how are you? To visit an attorney, open the will, signed with his name, sealed with red stamp. To clean the closets, give away crisp button-down shirts, well-worn pants, khaki and corduroy, golf shorts, tennis whites. It is terrible most times to walk the hall alone.
Jan, this is the first poem in the packet, and I I just thought, wow. It's very striking. And what struck me so much about it is that it's so clear and crisp, right? There's no pathos or melancholy, melodrama. It's terrible to survive. And it just tells us how it's terrible to survive. And then it wraps it all up. I like that you have couplets, really, 2 lines, and then you have a tercet at the end, and we have this body of details that leads us to this. It is terrible most times to walk the hall alone, and the answer to that for most every reader is to say, yes. It is, so it's a very relatable poem. It's very specific to this speaker. So I really just appreciated opening with this one. I had a couple of tiny notes, and they're so small. I wondered, and this is just my reading, because I wanted it to be terrible to survive. Period. I didn't really want the sometimes. I wanted it to really be terrible to survive, because that's what we learn about later. Because the sometimes, there's never a not, it's terrible in this poem, to sell his fishing boat, to be asked these questions, to open the will, etc. So it's never a sometimes, it's a present state in this poem. So I would, it also reduces the tension of the poem, because it's saying that this passes somehow, but the title is grief, and it just seemed like it didn't need to be there. I wondered if you wanted to italicize "how are you" instead of putting it in quotes, because the quotes sort of stop this listing in a way that italics don't. And we're really on a list, and I just thought maybe that would keep us flowing. I didn't look it up. I don't think will is capitalized. I think, but maybe it is. It could be. This is something to Google. Because it appears like it could be a name, the way it looks here in the poem, even though I know we're with the attorney. I thought it was really interesting, and I didn't know what this said about the man, or his man we're talking about. His crisp button-down shirts and well-worn pants. And so I wondered, I did briefly leave the poem asking myself, had he retired? Were the crisp button-down shirts from a job? Were the well-worn pants for all these activities, the fishing, I didn't, it was a detail that maybe I don't need to be distracted with in some way. But unless there's a point being made about the pants and about the shirts, maybe, then I was like, do the golf shorts need a button down? I'm asking questions I don't need to be asking. But then after those details, that one confusion, I was right there with the golf shorts, because then I'm learning more about him and the things that he did. And then we get to that just amazing line of, it is, it's terrible to walk the hall alone. So I think you did a fantastic job, and it was just a really remarkable poem. Just little tweaks, maybe.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, that was perfect.
Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is actually mine. I will read it. It's skinny.
Okay.
The waves kept crashing. We slept on the beach. I mapped your freckles. I was going to another country. I was always the one leaving. I didn't know what was in me that called. You were my twin, but not near enough. I didn't have freckles. You never blamed me for it. Our youngest brother lapped with the waves. He was a sardonic 9-year-old. We probably did that. Our younger sister made sandcastles. She couldn't wait to have her own house. The waves kept crashing. The wind, too, was a kind of dwelling. The moon was bright enough to see our arrangement of sleeping bags zipped together. I was older, but you were always in charge. That look you gave me like a great lake, like you knew what would happen. This was what goodbye felt like, how I felt whenever I thought of you. You went away the longest. You didn't look back.
Wow. So this is, what's so interesting about this poem for me was the point of view and the strategy with the lines, that they were most declarative. He was, we did, she couldn't, you know, we have a lot of just facts, enough, they're facts, but they're also just what is in this life that the speaker is presenting. And I really think it was very wise to not put periods or punctuation there, because if we had been stopped after each sentence with a period or line, we probably would have stopped too much, because we're already without a lot of transitions. And so I was thinking that is just a really smart move by not using anything and not moving us or stopping us with transitions or periods. I pulled out a little bit, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing. You were my twin, but not near enough. So then I went on a little rumination about fraternal and identical twins. And I wondered if you wanted to make that clear. You were my twin. I didn't have freckles. And then maybe we could just move, or I mean, then are they identical twins and they're just different, which does happen. So I don't know. I don't think you want us ruminating about what kind of twins they were, but they were twins and they were also different. That's the important part. Okay. Because they're also different. They're both leaving and one never comes back. Right. So they're the same. They're both going to leave. They're different. One doesn't come back. And I thought that was really important. That idea was crucial to the poem, but I didn't want to be pulled out of it with stupid thoughts that I always have about things. It's like, no, I need to be back. I need to be back. One word pulled me out of point of view, and that was sardonic. So if he's, I don't know how they're teenagers, I started doing a math problem. So he's 9 and then there's a younger. So I don't even know if I really know what sardonic is sometimes. So maybe that word, maybe he was nasty, or he was always joking, or a kid point of view word. I think we do lift into the adult speaker at the very end when we hear, this is what goodbye felt like, how I felt whenever I thought of you. You went away the longest. You didn't look back. I know we have left the child behind, but I don't think we've quite done that when they're sitting there watching the siblings. So that's why sardonic stuck out there. But I thought it was sort of it was like we were getting slapped in a good way with these details that lead to a loss. And I thought it was really well done and very sad, and not melodramatic, and not, weepy, or all those things we were talking about. It just really, it laid it out. And I thought it was great. Oh, there we go.
All right. Number 3 is Angie.
Okay.
Would you like to read it, or do you want Jessica to just go?
Is Angie here?
Oh, I thought she was.
I'm here. I was muted. I'm sorry.
Well, that's
Oh,
all
yeah, I
right.
thought I saw you come in. Yeah.
Yes, I can read it real quick.
Oh, thank you.
Gone missing and no one noticed. For 60 years, I entered those doors, dropped to my knees, searching for communion, a union. I looked for signs, shed tears, searched for answers, sought refuge, tried to forget, forgive, bargained, begged, listened. Over time, I left my heart outside as I struggled to sit in the silence of what was not being said. My brother was not welcome, loving the wrong kind. I never felt welcomed, even being the right kind. I was urged to choose the one who grabbed women, caged children, disregarded lives, a pandemic, violence. It became a one-ticket item arena, the unborn. Doctrine trumped any experience. Unmasked, they gathered, allowing me to see all the hypocrisy. A static place of pews, no longer relevant, irreverent, of those on the margins. No one even noticed. One day I left and never went back.
Wow. I mean, the title alone, Gone Missing and No One Noticed. I mean, this is, I was already disturbed immediately when I read that. And then I found that I enjoyed getting into the process of this, of what we were, where we were going. When I first read Dropped to My Knees, I had no idea that we were in church. Well, I'm assuming we're in church, but I didn't know. I was surprised. I was sort of stunned. And then realizing that, you know, the speaker is going in there for something very important. And then by the second stanza, a short stanza, we learned that this has not helped. Nothing, the heart has to stay outside the church doors, and the brother wasn't welcome. And then we realize the speaker never felt welcome. And then we get into this really kind of the irony or the contradictions or the just ridiculousness of certain, you know, rules. I was urged to choose the one who grabbed women, caged children, disregard lives, a pandemic violence. It became a one-ticket item arena, the unborn. Doctrine trumped any experience. So we get into the politics and the sort of the hitting bottom of your own religion or your belief system or your values or your group, hitting bottom with it and realizing it's not working, and then walking out. No one even noticed. One day I left and never went back. So this is like a huge letting go of something completely crucial, and we go through the entire process. And I thought that was very clear. I assumed, and I don't know if this is true, my brother was not welcome, loving the wrong kind. I assumed that this brother was gay.
Correct.
But I guessed, I don't know if loving the wrong person, loving a man,
Right.
it could be just easier. It could be, we know who it is. I never felt welcome, even being the right kind. So we get the difference there. But that was the only place I pulled out and started to wonder. And I think it'd be easy. The one thing I just sort of that third stanza kind of stretches out with the one who grabbed women. You might even break the line after caged children, disregarded lives, a pandemic, violence. You could play around with the line breaks there, but I thought it was, really very powerful, and definitely losing something you've had for 60 years is huge. But thank you. Great.
Thank you for your feedback.
Okay. Sarah Sarna, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Missing. When we give up our bodies, leave behind what no longer serves, I wonder if I will miss language, the way it feels in my mouth, the long and short of vowels, the staccato of hurried speech, or the feel of pencil lead trailing on paper as loops and lines become meaning. What will happen to the stories we have not shared because we didn't know the end? Perhaps communication is not lost altogether, but I think I will miss the beauty of words.
Wow, this really sort of struck me as I was thinking about my mother who has dementia, and I've watched her lose language, and first her ability to write. And I felt that, I thought you did a great job describing the feel of pencil lead trailing on paper as loops and lines become meaning. I thought that was, it just the way our hand works and the thought behind it. I thought you described it really well. And I also thought about people losing language for whatever reason, death or dementia, the way it feels in my mouth, the long and short of vowels, staccato of hurried speech, so I think you really captured language spoken and written just in a very evocative ways. And then there's something else I've heard a lot at her facility, that people want to stay alive to know the end of the story. We like, well, what will happen? Will we ever cure the virus? Will we, so there's this question here that's in your poem that it seems so universal. Is like, we would like to know the end. We would like to know how it ends. I felt that the speaker begins to sort of analyze what really happens with this line, these two lines, portions. Perhaps communication is not lost altogether. I felt sort of, we give up our body and we are gonna die. So, it is possible we can't communicate when we're dead, but, I'm still waiting for people to get in touch. But I felt like this was more analytical, and I wanted to go back to some of those very sensory details that were in the other part of this poem. Or what do you really mean? Maybe we communicate when we're dead. Maybe we communicate some in different ways. And what ways are they? Make it specific, or maybe find a way to, sorry? Oh, I thought someone said something. But that was the only place where I kind of popped out and thought, I don't really know what's going on, what exactly is happening, but I knew what was happening for almost the entire poem until then. So I just think it's so true, and you did a really great job, and I love the shape of it as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
This one's a little longer.
Well, we're doing kind of okay, I think. So
Okay.
maybe there's time I can, push a little over there.
Okay, Deborah?
Oh, you're muted.
If you'd like me to read it, I'm happy to read it. If for the sake of time, you want me not to, that's also.
I would actually love for everyone to read it, because, I've read them once, but I'm learning so much more now getting them the second time.
Okay,
Yeah.
Then I'll go ahead and read it. Icy paths and carefree steps scuttled my beautiful brain, a lifetime collection rent and drowning in the rising fog of lost dreams, wistful wishes for something more. Shards and shreds scrape, thread together, tips slip in and out of crusty, damaged fragments, brightly colored bruises. What remains? Wounds welded with sorcery, stretching and patching slivers and scraps onto my soul's canvas, blurring the focus, re-imaging the life lost into something less is what. something less is left. Something left is enough. You have good bone structure, says the beautician with the Jersey accent. Enough to build. Now this here is a really solid foundation, says the realtor from Portland, Maine. Hobbled, yet hurtling headway into life found, take two. My own fierce friend, finally, listening to frozen melodies and quarter notes echoing across my salvaged self.
This is really amazing. What I really had to work with at first, though, was the title, and I loved it because it helped me sort of pull this idea of someone who's been in some kind of tragedy or event. There's rubble left. And it's like, okay, so this is where the speaker is coming to us from. I was in New York last week and went to the 9/11 museum, and I was, so when I read rubble, I went right there. I just was pulling that imagery forward. So we find that we're in a lot of really very specific things. Icy paths and carefree steps, a lifetime collection rent and drowning in the rising fog of lost dreams. So nothing is necessarily like I don't know exactly what happened, but I'm getting a lot of images that help me. And the things there's some beautiful things and there's some very painful things. We have the rising fog of lost dreams, which is a beautiful image, but it's also lost dreams. And then we have brightly colored bruises, which is sort of beautiful, but they're bruises. So I'm understanding that what is going on was something beautiful and also something very painful at the same time. And then there's some anaphoric repetition, something less is what, something less is left, something left is enough. So whatever has happened here, the speaker is telling us that there's been a turn. And also this is funny, like, you have good bone structure, says the beautician with a Jersey accent. I mean, it made me smile. And then enough to build. So we know that there's building coming. So we've been down in the rubble and we've turned and now we're building. So there's a nice arc of action here. Now this here is a really solid foundation, says the realtor from Portland, Maine. So, it keeps us away from any pathos or melodrama because we have these other voices here, one with a Jersey accent. And then we move into that final line, across my salvaged self. And I feel a sense of accomplishment for the speaker and for myself as a reader. I can't tell you that I know exactly what's going on. And that is the beauty of poetry. But we know, I know the arc of experience, and that is enough. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, dog walk. My husband's interrupting me. But it's just as well you don't see him in his little outfit. I think it's great. I noted your use and lack of use of capitals and of punctuation. You have ellipses, which I'm not a big ellipses fan, but they work in this poem. And I love the parenthetical comments. So,
Thanks.
pardon me?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. It's great. I noticed in the chat, someone said you were a survivor. And yes, I would say this is a survivor poem. Carol?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, you want to
Carol
read?
Lee.
Yes,
Sure, if everyone's reading, yes, it's not too long.
thank you.
On the heath, somehow I knew if I walked here long enough, I would find the child who draws me. In loving memory of Georgina Reese, a special child who ran and played on this heath before her short life ended, she is loved and missed by many. The children on the hill, their kites soaring above the crown of St. Paul's, do not know her, or me, or my autumn grace. And so I sit swept somehow up with the whispers of the wind, simple small laughter, the strain of each letter carved into the bench, soothed somehow, two children gone, yet a moment's joining.
Wow. So this is also a journey. The speaker is looking for this lost child, and I don't know the connection yet as a reader, but I'm already upset. In loving memory of Georgina Reese. So we read that, and then we move to children who are alive and who are not in memory. Their kites are flying and they don't know about Georgina or the speaker, and the speaker is taken by this image and by the children and moved up and out. We move then, though, the whispers of the wind, simple small laughter, the strain of each letter carved into the bench, which must be what Georgina must be Georgina. Then I get a little confused here at the end. Sue, somehow two children gone, yet a moment's joining. So my mind thinks, are these two children of the speaker? Is there another something on the bench that I'm missing?
Her daughter.
Pardon me? Oh, I keep hearing voices. But I don't think it really matters that I'm confused. I know that there is a loss that the speaker has faced, and somehow together, maybe the child that the speaker lost and Georgina are joined. That's, so I have to do some work at the end, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I just wanted to let you know that's what was going on for me at the ending. It didn't leave me in a solid place, and that's okay. The third stanza, I wonder if you want to play, I'm sorry. Yeah, the third stanza, which the long ending stanza, their kites soaring above the crown of St. Paul's. And that next line, do not know her or me or my autumn grace. Those are very long lines. And I wondered if you maybe would want to play with them, because you then also have the one word stanza up. One word line up. And I know that does force us to go up, but it's also, you might be able to put up at the end of a line. That we will also go up as well. But it's a beautiful poem, and it's a beautiful situation filled with a lot of loss. And it seems that the speaker is moving through it. And so it's reassuring in that way. So thank you. All right, who's this? Is this Lucy?
Hello.
Okay.
I
You wanna
have the voice, but I don't have the picture. Is that okay?
You want to read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mammogram awareness. The next time I come in for a mammogram, I'm bringing my boyfriend. We can have a shower before I leave, so I don't have to wipe off any deodorant or makeup or perfume if I was stupid enough to put it on after 30 years of tests. He will laugh and help me with the paper blouse vest thing that doesn't really bend well enough to cover anything. He'd place my breasts exactly where you want them to be. He will not shove me into the plastic protective shield, banging my head. He will gently move me forward when you say move up, but really mean forward. He will not slam me against the edges of the machine to bruise me. He'll put his warm-hearted hands on it so it won't be cold to my touch. With his arms around me, taking my breath away, you will, after one try, have a perfect clear image for however many dozen views you need. I guarantee you, lady, I will not have any bruises that show up tomorrow or next week. We will leave with smiles on our faces, no tears, and the three of us will have had a good time.
Well, that doesn't sound like any mammogram I've ever had. So I thought that this was very funny. I will say, and this is just me, and I felt really sorry for the mammogram technician in this poem, because I don't think, my feeling is, while I despise a mammogram, pretty much right up there with not a great feeling, I think they really, I argued with this poem. I thought, now, is there really any way to make a mammogram like this? We have this beautiful, this is like a dream mammogram. This is the mammogram of our dreams that we will never have. There will never be a kindly boyfriend or girlfriend moving our breasts, but they still have to be smashed. So no matter what, so I'm arguing, I'm going, well, it's not really her fault. So I wondered what the speaker was really mad about. I wondered if the speaker, who is the speaker really angry at? I mean, she calls her lady. That's what I do. I've been in fights with ladies. Like, hey, listen, lady. I mean, that's almost like a slur, a swear word. So if there is a specific problem with this technician, I wanted to sort of know, like, you have an ongoing yearly fight with your mammogram technician, and this is your revenge poem, or is this about the boyfriend?
Okay, I'm on my grief and loss work.
So I wondered if this was about him. Is this poem really about the boyfriend who's doing all these moves? Can you imagine a man in a mammogram sliding and lifting, moving that stupid little thing they put on you? So I love it just the way it is. I think it's funny. I think it can stay, but I did think that maybe there's another poem inside here that could come out. You could explore and think about what is really going on, because I think they save our lives, these mammograms. I think they're worth, it's kind of like the vaccine. It's kind of worth an achy day. It's kind of worth a few bruises, right? And that's the argument I was having with the poem, even as I laughed. So, but thank you for presenting that perspective.
I have left one mammogram not crying and horribly bruised. I had somebody at the Y ask me one time who hit me, and I said, it's just that mammogram thing. And I said nothing about the squishing part.
You really didn't. Maybe it's just this is the thing. I think you present something very interesting here about the situation. And is it this specific person? That's why I asked, is it a specific technician? Is it the way they are being treated? Is it your body? Is it your boyfriend? That's what I'm saying. I think there's something else going on that I would continue to read a triptych of mammogram poems, frankly. You can start with this one and then keep going. I think I think it's great.
Thank you.
All right. This is Ed. You want to do it?
I'm here.
Okay.
A wife. Others spoke of your smile, almost iridescent in your black-haired Irish charm. In latter days, the smile the same, The hair, though, silver, unadorned by artificial aid. Women sat marveling when you went to have it cut in quiet awe. Agile in spirit, though limbs and body, heart and arteries began to fail. You loved all children with inexhaustible gentleness, led them into stories, guided and approved or disapproved their sometimes messy lives. Loved daughters, grandkids most of all. You celebrated seasons with a gusto almost preternatural. All the house expressed your love. Red runners, artificial flowers, bowls of shells, and colored candles in the dining room. No swimmer, yet you loved the water, whether shower, lake, or river. But the ocean, California girl, your latest love, the Gulf of off Sanibel, where for 5 Februaries you sat, enjoyed the dolphins and the pelicans, and ate your weight in oysters, some might say. Your final birthday, such a feat. Brought home from hospital by ambulance, the queen among her retinue. The family, grandchildren gathered by your side, you celebrated with the wine and food and entertainment. Slipped away on Sunday morning, leaving awe and love behind. Such holidays will never be the same.
Wow, thank you, Ed. That's a really amazing tribute, and so many details that are specific to this one woman, this one wife, right? The things that are going on here with the swimming and the oysters and the birthday and her hair and her smile. So we get a really clear picture of who this woman was. And also we get a clear picture of how the speaker felt about her, his wife. So I think that all really works. And it's written also in a very loving and potentially idealized way. It doesn't say, and those 17 fights we had, there's none of the like the daily, like her snippy little comments, but maybe they weren't there, but that they're absent from this poem. So it is an ode, really, a beautiful remembrance. So we have to, we read it as an idealized but specific portrait of a woman. So I wondered the title, A Wife. So this really isn't a wife. It's my wife. The poem might be my wife, or I also, because this wife doesn't just get to move around. This is a very specific wife. I also noted, this is a poem of address, that the speaker's addressing you, the wife. So I wondered if it might be titled You. I just some thoughts about that, because it was not a general one size fits all wife poem. I think your last line, I don't know if you need it, because I think it's extremely clear that such holidays will never be the same. Nothing will ever be the same. She's gone. And I think you could probably take it off. And in a way, you could just leave the poem with her leaving, because we already also see the awe and the love. So that it's kind of summing up, that last stanza is really summing up that what we really know, except for that she slipped away on Sunday morning, which maybe just leaving with the death might really be a strong way to end. But I really love the details, and I thought you did a very, very good job here with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Laura.
Well, glass, but not glass, a mirror to hold a memory of nature, but not a mirror, a lake to hold birds floating in the dusk, but not a lake, a dream rolling in black and white, but not birds, angels, silent wings folded, but not angels, only you, but not you, a memory.
You know, this is fantastic because you really never actually tell us what. It's a series of presenting us with details, but not, right? So, but not glass, but not a mirror, but not a lake, but not birds, but not you, a memory. And then so we finally get to what we are really left with, a memory. And it's sort of ephemeral, like a memory, because we can't even put our hands on what we're reading about. And so it's just, I don't think I'd change a thing on this poem. It's perfect. Look how lovely it looks on the page. It's just, and it moves just like, and I love the anaphora, but not, and all the things about, you know, the glass and the mirror and the lake, and we move through sort of elements, then we move into flying creatures, and then we're whisked away. So I say, send it out. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy Jones.
I'm
Judy
here.
Jones. Okay. Is this our villanelle? This is a villanelle, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. I'm glad I recognized it.
Outside looking in. Being on the outside looking in at my own life was weird. It was the creep up the back of my neck that scared. Darkness was never my friend. It's something I feared. Grappling with reality was to the point of absurd. There was a screwdriver stuck in my head. I wasn't prepared. Being on the outside, looking in at my own life was weird. Understanding seemed relatively easy, but soothing to discard. There was no respite, no quiet. I wasn't being spared. Darkness was never my friend. It's something I feared. Incessant hammering of my heart finally disappeared. The dilemma was not mine alone. It could be shared. Being on the outside, looking in at my own life was weird. Anger and guilt still needed to be commandeered. Acceptance came slowly as I emotionally arrived. Darkness was never my friend. It's something I feared. Coming to terms with chaos should definitely be revered. Concession and peace eventually appeared. Being on the outside, looking in at my own life was weird. Darkness was never my friend. It's something no longer feared.
Okay, well, bravo, brava to you for tackling the villanelle. I think I might have written 2 or 3, and they are all desperately terrible. So you really kept the lines going, and you really worked the idea, and then you just sort of flip it. You change it at the end. You change that one repeating line so that we could see the growth of the speaker. What I questioned as I read it earlier today is what is happening in this life that is weird. I don't know as a reader, and I wanted to know a few more specifics about the experience of the speaker. However, in a villanelle, in any fixed form poem, especially one with repeating lines, even as something as short as a triolet, we are confined by the form that keeps us from potentially exploring some things that readers might want to know. So it's like it, but I think within the confines of the villanelle, you could probably give us some specificity and maybe change up some of the lines. Like for instance, in the third stanza, when you write, understanding seemed relatively easy, but soothing to discard. I'm wondering what do I need to understand, and or what did the speaker need to understand? And there was no respite, no quiet. I wasn't being spared, and from what? So if you could take your form and add to it some very clear experience, I think that you'll have this nailed down. I also find the word weird. It's a weird word, weird. And it's one of your repeating words. And so I wondered, what really was this experience like? Maybe it really was weird, but if I knew what the experience was, maybe I'd say, yeah, that's pretty weird. Being on the outside, looking at my own life, well, what's happening to make that happen? And then I will be able to go with weird. That's the thing about repeating words. If the words are weird, or they somehow grab the reader's attention for no real reason, we'll focus on them. But I think you did a great job with rhyme, and you did a great job with the repetition. So I applaud you. And I'd love to see it just being a little bit more specific, so we can fully breathe a sigh of relief, and not when it's something no longer feared, whatever it was. The other thing about it's something no longer feared, though, is it's in the passive voice. And I wondered why, when it's finally accomplished, we don't have an I in there. I no longer fear it.
Right.
Yeah. So
my original title was The Diagnosis, and maybe I should have left that as my title.
You know, titles can do so much for us.
Right.
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 Right. If I know that, and you could even tell us what kind of diagnosis it was, and we go,
Right.
fine, got it.
Right.
Say no more. It is weird to hear a diagnosis. So yeah, good, great idea. Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Erna.
Hi. Okay, blueberry bowl. The broken bowl sits on the shelf of memory, broken one morning after you were gone. Its mate sits in my kitchen on a wooden shelf, anchored to cabinet sides, defying gravity, holding aloft a lone bowl. Each time I use it, I think of its brother, shards of shared yellow from the sides, specks of blue from the center. I remember when you bought them, or rather your mother bought them for you. All of us together, mother, grandmother, aunt, daughter, son. I, 6 years old, and Max, 4, whined and wondered when we could get out of a room with shelf after shelf of carefully crafted vessels, a room with hard, bare floors and dim light. Finally, you made a decision, and we left the cool damp of Stangle pottery to run into the slanting sun and piles of leaves. I came to love those bowls, their simplicity and vibrant colors, and the larger bowl that came with them. I love them because you love them, displaying them on the mantle in summer, blueberry season, safely tucked away the rest of the year. The mama bowl disappeared. I rescued son and daughter from a storage shed where my brother had placed things you lived with, things you loved and touched. I still miss the broken bowl. I used to curse my clumsiness, but now alone, my spouse gone, I really only need one.
Wow. Yeah, there's something so amazing about a bowl. I would buy a ton of bowls for no other reason, because they're amazing. So I was kind of already gripped by the bowl and just blueberry bowl, the title. And that second line, broken one morning after you were gone. I had some questions about who this person was to the speaker. We have a poem of address where the speaker's talking to you, and then we have some family. So I really paid attention, especially now as you were reading it. You bought them, or your mother bought them for you, all of us together, and the speaker was very young. So I was doing a lot of work trying to figure, and not that it really matters, because we learn in the third stanza that the speaker loved this person. I came to love those bowls, their simplicity and vibrant colors. I love them because you love them. And there's a really intense connection between the speaker and the person who is no longer there. But there's a great grief, but there's also a very lovely sense of acceptance, I think, in that last stanza. You know, the speaker is sort of bemoaning the broken bowl in memory in the first stanza, but by the last stanza, I still missed a broken bowl. I used to curse my clumsiness, but now alone, my spouse gone, I only need one. So there's this like, yeah, I got the bowl. It was your bowl. I loved you. I love the bowl. I don't need another bowl. I'm alone. And there's an acceptance of that I really appreciated. But I would like a little more clarity about who this person was, because we learn about Max. You know, like, who's Max? Who is Max in this? But I just wanted more clarity. The other thing you might want to play around with, this is a little prosy, and it's possible this could be a prose poem. You could restring this into little paragraphs, because it does sort of have a beginning, middle, and end. And or you could do some compression and a little cutting, and take away some of the prepositions, or you have a number of them. The broken bowl sits on the shelf of memory. The broken bowl sits in memory. You know, I don't know, you could compress, you could see where you could reduce, or you could see how you could make it more into a story in a prose poem shape. Okay.
Someone did suggest my putting in my mother's blueberry bowl and title, and that might clear it up.
That, you know, these titles are now proving to be crucial. Yeah, my mother's blueberry bowl would have cleared up everything for me right there. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Vlasta.
Okay. These things I save. I collect your words. I wish we had met 50 years ago. I always thought I would die on the dance floor. I feel that I shortchanged us. Do you feel like you're on a death watch? I stuff your handwritten poems into an old sock, carry them with me in daylight hours, hold them over my heart in bed. I wish to have you in my arms to glide across the floor. I'd like to kiss you, hold you, and say, you're just what I need. I would caress your back with all my caring. Should we tell the world what we have found? Your words, a bountiful reservoir of joy, dilute my lingering taste of sorrow.
That's lovely. I think my favorite, it struck me this afternoon. I carry your handwritten poems in an old sock. Okay, that's not just part one of what I love. I love the idea of carrying poems in an old sock. I carry them with me in daylight hours and hold them over my heart in bed. Like, wow, that kind of just says it all right there. And I collect your words, and then we learn about how they're carried, and then we actually have the words, and we get to hear them. And then we can see, we're told in the last stanza of how they are helping the speaker deal with her sorrow. So I just it's a very amazingly structured and interesting poem. I like the way you use the other language. I'm imagining that they're real. They're real words. They're someone else's words in this poem, and just lovely, just lovely. I really don't have too much to say. The lines that are the borrowed language of the words, they're kind of long in that, I guess we could call it the third stanza. I wish to have you in my arms. You could make them longer, and you could even indent the second part to maybe reshape that a little bit, but I think it works really well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are not doing Patricia's, so we are on to Macy.
Okay. First of all, I did a little bit of editing on this morning, so I'll read the editing version.
Okay.
One of the things I did was I corrected the spelling of Roditas.
Oh, okay.
Visitation. You left with no goodbye, but still I wait at the new Greek diner, order gyros. I suppose if you come, you'll scoff at a Greek restaurant not serving Roditas. I imagine finding you on our sofa, sipping our martini, watching the news. I want to kiss you, but instead say, it's about time you showed up. All my grieving friends have visitations, feel the presence of their departed sitting on the bed, clasp a phantom hand, or catch a whiff of Old Spice in the hall. In a dream, I see you walking with a cane ahead of me on the sidewalk. I call, you don't look back, collapse before I reach you. Then waking, angry, I call 911. The day I change a flat tire, I'm sure your presence will guide me, but no warm breath tickles my neck. The day's stillness stretches along an empty road where even apparitions in the dust are absent. It is deception to think you will come. You never had patience, would only say, this is not rocket science. So I buck up, YouTube it, and swap the tire without you. Good job, I say, come and see.
I thought that was really, really fun. I love the specificity of it's sad. Visitation, I'm understanding. You left with no goodbye. So those two things together, I understand what I'm reading about right away. But then we go to a Greek diner, so it's like we're really in this marriage, and the sofa, the martini, and then this kind of it's about time you showed up. And then we also had, this isn't rocket science, so we have this sort of smarty alecky snippy visitation, and it's very loving and also honest, right? We see that, he was a little impatient perhaps, and we get the full kind of personality. I love that you keep using the idea of visitations, that the friends see them. Then we see the dream, which is a kind of visitation, actually, and very common when people lose someone to dream about them. And then, but it's not the visitation she wants, the speaker. She wants him to come help her when she has a flat tire. And we see that in this poem, we get through, she's able to sort of transition into a place where she doesn't need him, but she still wishes he was there. So it's a very beautiful arc of movement. And I have a couple of just little tweaks. I wouldn't use quotes and italics, one or the other, and I would go with italics because, again, quotes quotation marks sort of stop us. And there's a couple of examples of that. I wondered, when all my grieving friends have visitations, I wondered if there could be an example of one friend who had a visitation that we could have an example of. Well, Martha had, Sam showed up and, was trying to sit down and eat dinner at the table. I don't know. I just wondered if we could have one example of the kind of visitation she's expecting and he's not doing it. I think that's it. I just really liked it. I love the Old Spice in the hall. I mean, it gives us a sensory detail there that works well. Actually, I see that she said it's about time. They were snippy with each other. I kind of like that. That's great. Thank you. Well done. Okay. Judy.
Yes, how it is. I've lost the warm cloak of your protection, the staff I leaned upon for so many years. I've lost the companionship of humor, shared laughter, inside jokes. I've lost the encyclopedic answers to my questions, for now it is you who ask and I who must explain. But I still have your smile, the small talk of daily life, the warmth of you in darkest night. Again, I tell myself, you are still here.
This poem really I think tonight's lesson must be about titles, and I love this very strong, because how can I argue with the speaker right away? How it is. Okay, I get it, right? So we can't really argue with it. It's a very strong title. And then we learn how it is, the warm cloak of the protection, this person who the speaker leaned on for so many years, jokes, laughter, inside jokes, and then just, all these things. But then then the poem turns. I still have your smile, the small talk of daily life, the warmth of you in the darkest night. I tell myself you are still here. So it seems that this reminds me of someone who might have cognitive impairment or dementia or Alzheimer's, because I've lost the encyclopedic answers to my questions. For now, it is you who ask and I who explain. And I really kind of like that I don't have the specific diagnosis or problem. It could have been a stroke, but the point is the relationship has changed and we're left with the physical form of him or her, and the chitty chat and warmth. And the speaker has to remind herself that is enough. So I like it. You could leave this just as it is. I think it says a lot, especially to somebody who has experienced living with someone who is missing now some part of him or herself. You could write a series of poems about I started thinking about what was this protection like? How did this person protect her? How did she lean on him? I almost wanted to hear him tell a joke, or hear an inside joke. And every relationship has those little catchphrases, right? Yeah, it's like, this is what we say. And they come from kids, TV shows you all watch together. So you could expand this poem to be very specific about those things that are gone. And you could then add a little bit more to what is left. What do they talk about in daily life? The breakfast, the coffee, the toast, the weather, the cars that go by. So you could add to that. But it does work just as it is, also. So it's very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you much.
You're welcome. Okay, we are on to Estella. Is Estella here? No? No, Estella? Well, we can come back if she comes back. Was she here, Tori?
I think she's muted.
Oh, okay. Maybe she left briefly. You want to come back to her if she comes back?
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, Estella. Oh, she's trying to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. There we go.
The poem went away and I, can you make it come back?
Oh, it's here. Well, I'm seeing the poem.
Do you want me to read it for you, Estella, maybe?
Sure, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. On preparation. I've said that nothing prepared us for the sudden midlife death of our son, but we were not naive. My father lost his mother to childbirth when he was 6, his stepmother at 8, a favored older brother in his teens. Elderly relatives passed often in my childhood. Chuck's mother died his freshman year in college. A colleague committed suicide at 39. Our niece left in seconds from an aneurysm at 59. A friend lost her teenage son to a lightning bolt. Another son dropped after a basketball game. We knew what would happen, but didn't dream it would to someone whose energy was legendary, whose biological knowledge was enviable. How could he not live to 90 in a family where no men from either side had died before 65? Adventurer, it's true, but a careful master of plants who also knew his own body, scientist in all things large and small. No one on the ski patrol had ever seen so deep a laceration from a flying ski, but such a wound would not normally produce a clot large enough to block a hearty lung and stop a healthy heart with no warning inside 3 hours after 3 weeks of strong healing. It didn't matter what we knew of death. This one was inconceivable.
Wow. Yeah, this struck me all so much death and loss, and also, you know, I think the speaker asked or makes an important statement. I've said that nothing prepared us, but we were not naive. I mean, yeah, I think we can learn a lot about death and lose a lot of people, but to lose a child is something other. I mean, I just feel that it is on a different tier, despite all the losses that preceded this one loss that we have toward the end of the poem, the loss of a child, a very strong and seemingly invincible child. So it's kind of innocence to awareness, innocence to experience poem, despite the fact, of course, the speaker and her husband have experienced so much before that. So it made me, this poem, my reader response to this poem was I started creating my own list as I was reading it of all the people I've lost. And I realized I was almost dual processing. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, all these deaths. And it sort of was a really interesting interaction with the list here. A couple of thoughts. You kind of had me viscerally. No one on the ski patrol had ever seen so deep a laceration from a flying ski. You know, I was like, wow. And then we spend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines on a sort of a confusing, obviously it was unexpected health, there was a blood clot and that blocked the lungs and heart. So I think that needs to be compressed closer to the ski. No one on the ski patrol had seen so deep a laceration. No one expected the blood clot. We know what they do, and we know that they kill. And I think you could, because the tension and the horror from the flying ski kind of gets stretched out a little bit into the clot. I'd push them together. You also seem to invoke Emily Dickinson for me at the very end. It didn't matter what we knew of death, or death stopped for, I was thinking of her poetry. And I agree with that last line. This one was inconceivable. I think we know that. And I wonder if we need that last line. It didn't matter what we knew of death is incredibly strong. And it is inconceivable. Death is inconceivable. Death is inconceivable. So thank you for sharing this and really making me just, we can never understand it, especially when it's one like this. So really, really strong. Oh, I didn't know who Chuck was. I assumed Chuck was elderly relatives passed often in my childhood. Chuck's mother. I was thinking that maybe Chuck was the husband, but he just sort of shows up in that stanza. I'm like, who's Chuck? How did Chuck get into this poem without being invited in? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess Sue.
All right. I took to heart your direction to do smaller sadnesses. And so that's what inspired this particular poem.
Great.
The little sadnesses. The little sadnesses are the hardest of all. Daylight lost in November's dusk. Still meadows absent the lark's song. Vermilion leaves scattered by the storm. A fawn lies still by the side of the road. A cardinal's spouse beneath my glass door. Almost without notice, they stack one upon the other, a rickety column behind my heart. The little sadnesses are the hardest of all.
Wow. Really, really beautiful. They are little, but they're huge, right? So it's just a beautiful poem. I have just tiny, I love it. I love the shape of it. Because you repeat the first line, the little sadnesses are the hardest, and I'm going to encourage you just to take off of all. The little sadnesses are the hardest. I would do some other work with your title. I would let the title do something else because you have repeated the little sadnesses twice. See what else can come up. But that's it, the title and taking off the 2 prepositional phrases, and I'd say this is good. It's so true. And my favorite part is that I feel this almost without notice. They stack one upon the other, and that's grief. It just does a little dog pile for us as we go through, but really beautiful. And this also felt so natural though, right? We're in nature the entire time. We're in November's dusk, where the lark song, the vermilion leaves, the fawn is outside, the cardinal is near the door. It's a very, death is natural, but it's still the hardest. So it's just really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Lucy.
Open grown oak. This oak's gnarled limbs spread open wide because it sprouted alone in a field. Green lane of time keeps galloping stride. Through leafy summers long it thrives, wood layered on, more branches shield this oak's gnarled limbs spread open wide. Come snows and solstice, years divide. In massed years, plenty as acorns yield. Green lane of time keeps galloping stride. And scamper squirrels so bright-eyed under the shade of leaves concealed this oak's gnarled limbs spread open wide. As decades some, its wood grows dried, some bark from limbs now broken peeled. Brown lane of time keeps galloping stride. Harsh winds and age, the tree has died. Limbs scattered on ground, its fate revealed. This oak's gnarled limbs spread open wide. Gold lane of time keeps galloping stride.
So well done. I applaud all people in you doing a fixed form. I think you did a really good job with the theme. And because I got the missing, I got the poem that is missing those last 3 lines. I had already gotten very fond of harsh winds and age, the tree has died as that ending line. And I don't know what to do with that. I've got to deal with that I have some cognitive dissonance going on here. Gold lane of time keeps galloping stride is also the idea that, okay, we're going to keep going. Here we go. We're going to do something else. We'll have another oak tree. There are 2 instances of, I guess, inverted syntax that sometimes happens when we're working with a fixed forms. In massed years, plenteous acorns yield. That's one of those lines that we write when we're trying to, you had to rhyme with shield. So we got to get that yield. You know, the yield of acorns is plenteous in massed years, right? If we revert it, right? We're trying to make it. So that line hit my ear wrong. I don't know how to fix it. And scamper squirrels, I really wanted I wanted squirrels to scamper, not scamper squirrels. So, but that's just to my ear. But otherwise, I thought all the rest of the lines and the rhyme really worked. I didn't get pulled out. And I'm also extremely fond of the comma from spread open, comma, wide. I love that use of the comma there. And we get to see it in almost every stanza. Well, no, quite a few though. It's really, really good use of comma because we focus on the wide. And then we find later that the tree has died. And then later in that stanza, it's open wide again. So I think the theme's clear. I think the form's right on, just a couple of sentences, but I think you did a really good job with it. Really, really tight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is June?
I don't see June on the call, so
Oh, June's not here.
I don't
Okay.
think so. So
Okay.
I think we made it to the end.
Well, and I was thinking thank you, everybody. If anyone had any, we have 6 minutes. If anyone had any questions about revision or their poem, or I'm happy to try to answer.
I'd like you to say a few words about titles because they're so important.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And they're really hard. I can really title everybody else's stuff, and then it comes to my own. And so this is where I think that reading poems aloud to each other and reading and being in a writing group, because someone say, I don't know about your title. It's got to do more work. And you're thinking, well, I thought my title was doing a lot of work, So I think if you're writing, I think I presented a poem last time we were together called Elegy. And it was a very simple poem about a woman sitting at a cafe and the lavender smelled. And we didn't know it was an elegy at all. It was just about this is what you would have said if you were here. That's the last line of that poem. And the title tells us that this is about someone who's dead. We wouldn't have known that. So that title does just about all the work that the poem isn't doing in one word. So if you're writing a poem where you don't want to be specific, someone solved all the problems of their poem with, I wasn't going to call, done. So if your poem isn't answering that one question, you could just write it into the title. I think that we don't want our poetry to be too telly or too on the nose, but a title can be, if that makes any sense. I wrote a poem. A woman I knew only on speaking hello, how are you basis was killed in my town this week by her soon-to-be her estranged husband. And I wrote a poem about it, and I wrote it like, to the judge who did not give the Star Murrah a restraining order against her husband. Okay, so that title is not going to be the title, but that's what I started with, because I didn't want my poem to have the details about the judge and the I just wanted it to be about the woman. But you can't, I have seen titles that are like 3 lines long where the poet's like, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, and then I'm going to write the poem. So, I saw a kitty. They're really hard. Titles are so hard. Read it. Ask a friend is my advice. Ask a friend, a poet friend. Anyone else? Any other lingers?
Thanks for your sheets on the revising, the critiquing, and so forth. Those were very helpful.
Oh, I'm so glad. I always want more critique sheets myself. So feel free to send them to me too, if you have any. You guys have been great to work with. I really, really appreciate it. I love that you all mostly have your cameras on, and I see your faces, and you guys have a great organization going. And Tori, you've done, this is fantastic.
Tori.
Yeah.
Jessica, I think we should.
Jessica.
Thank you, but no, really.
She roared through those review poems in short order. It was great.
Well, that's what 32 years of teaching will do. If nothing else, I can read quickly.
Can you give us your contact information again if we want to find out more things that you might be doing, more workshops?
Well, yeah, I'm going to just give you my website, which also has a contact. You can email me, or did I spell my name right? Yeah, you can email me through there. You can, that's how Tori found me, through my website. My social media, if you're on Facebook, I love to post pictures of trees, the vermilion leaves, which we read about today. Yeah, I'm happy to see all your cat photos and your publications.
I'll share her website in follow-up materials. How about that?
Thank you. Well, good luck with your writing, folks. It was a pleasure and a privilege to read everything. So thank you so much. Thank you, Tori.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jessica.
Tori.
And I highly recommend her Grim Ani. It was a beautiful poetry book.
Thank you. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.